Hi, this is Brian too. It's May 30, 2017. 48 hours before I depart from the country, sleep deprivation torture already beginning. I always do this when I travel, always. They target me heavily, brutally with sleep deprivation torture. um, it's used for a variety of reasons, including to place the brain of the victim into a state of functional disorientation where the victim can't recognize a modification of his active memory or fight back against the system's influences. Um, Immobilize the victim, cause the victim to make mistakes. It's been one brutal. Without sleep deprivation torture, their technology cannot work properly. They kept me between it wouldn't let me sleep, but pushed me down in between a state of conscious and subconscious states. I guess somewhere, I'm not sure, I guess somewhere between 7 to 4 hertz theta state. They tortured the victim with sleep deprivation to the point of near incoherency, and then afterwards push the victim back up out of theta state into alpha, beta, delta using electromagnetic low frequency waves specifically tuned to the brainwave signature of the victim interfacing with the nanotechnology in the victim's brain. So it appears the victim's not sleep deprived at times, but that's, that he's not constantly drowsy, fatigued, lethargic, can't concentrate, hallucinating, etc. But rather alert or energetic. But that's an illusion. That's how they do it, and it makes the victim's brain become dependent upon the stream of energy. The electromagnetic low frequency waves are this bidirectional, fabricated and falsified stream of energy. The cognitive ability of the trauma-based mind control victim is severely impaired, especially when severe sleep deprivation. Torture. I mean, this allows speed of light remote neural attacks to be effective, meaning they're able to place the victim into a state of severe drowsiness at speed of light, drop the victim down into theta state within a fraction of a second. As the speed of light remote neural attack occurs, then the victim will go from alert to vision blurring, almost passing out drowsiness, before he becomes alert again a second later, not recognizing that modification of his active memory just occurred. So that's how it works. That's one of the reasons that they do it. It's called functional disorientation. There might also be referred to as procedural disorientation. I don't know. It's achieved by just this constant, continuous, 24-hour fabricated and falsified stream of electromagnetic low frequency waves designed to interfere with my memory, my normal memory and thought process. So the victim's brain, my brain, is placed into a state of functional disorientation using brutal sleep deprivation torture so that I become dependent upon the R&M system's output, meaning I'm no longer able to recognize that these fabricated and falsified injections are not my own responses, but are in fact artificial. They want the victim to believe that the responses are their own. And when your brain is placed into a state of functional disorientation, that's more easily achieved with brutal sleep deprivation torture, which all trauma-based mind control victims go through. That's why they die a premature death. One of the reasons. Their internal organs targeted heavily with directed energy. It's... as soon as the victim is pitched into a state of functional disorientation, formulation, predictive integration, and the other phases of remote neural monitoring are much easier to accomplish. So at that point, they begin to pretend that these fabricated subconscious responses are indicators of honesty, dishonesty, positive recognition, anxiety, anger, agitation, rage, aggression, lust, fear, paranoia, etc. And they use those to convince these impulse injections, these remote neural attacks, these previous memory references, to convince the victim that the fabricated responses are his own. The brutal sleep deprivation torture continues on me constantly. And it's used on all trauma-based mind control victims so that they remain disoriented and unaware of the constant mental manipulation that's occurring. They know they're targeted, they feel the pain, the trauma, but they're so brutally sleep deprived that their brain is in a state of constant functional disorientation. So they can't recognize the attacks as they're happening. And it's that point at which the RNM supercomputer, this brain-to-computer interface, this RNM system, remote neural manipulation, begins to shape the thoughts and behavior of the victim, meaning to try to continuously alter the daily motives and emotional perceptions of the victim, to use motivational impulses and previous memory references, particularly regarding the previous choice reference patterns of the victim, to pitch the victim constantly, pitch the victim into action or access sequences for the purposes of manipulation, direct behavioral control, verification, etc. In other words, the system's constantly driving by force, or attempting to drive by force, my memory and thought process, to influence me to begin to make minor choices that I can't recognize are not my own, such as where I'll go for lunch or coffee or tea, or do this or do that. The system is able to achieve a certain degree of direct behavioral control over the victim. And it uses the organized stalkers to verify that technology by engaging in situational and conversational scenarios, as well as other reasons for which organized stalking is used. It's just a constant daily process of brutal torture. And I can't believe that it's going on in a real world environment, and there's all these witnesses, and they don't even give a damn. They don't care what happened. What happened was, I went to the hospital. I told the doctor that I needed antidepressants. The doctor asked me why. I said I was being followed. He said, how many people are following me? I said, a bunch. He said, who? I said, I don't know. It's called organized stalking. Boom, he threw me into the mental institution. Never mind, it took hours for the psychiatrist to get there. It was all set up. It's all part of their, medical COINTELPRO tactics that the doctor was already plugged into the paradigm. Once the victim is thrown into the mental institution, diagnosed with a mental illness, paranoid, schizophrenic, whatever, then all future testimony is disbelieved. It's brutal CIA trauma-based mind control 101. It's a basic tactic they use on all victims, so that no one will believe that the atrocities are occurring. It's just unbelievable. The CIA and DIA hive mind teams, these psychologists, psychiatrists, neuroscientists, behavioral scientists, and so forth, can continue to do this, to use these constant remote neural attacks and brutal directed energy torture, sleep deprivation torture, and no one knows or cares. People operate off the Occam razor principle, which is the natural philosophy that the simplest answer is always the truth. The simplest explanation is always the best explanation. So all that these hive mind teams have to do, the system itself, the surveillance teams, the organized stalkers, etc., everything's highly compartmentalized. It's just engaged in a sufficiently complex scheme of harassment, and the victim just becomes, discredited. It's called gaslighting. It's called organized stalking. So, that, and with the fact that the entire government scheme is just one constant setup, one constant brutal process that leaves the victim no chance for justice, no chance to prove that the tactics are happening. This is remote neural interference with your memory and thought process. And because it's based on the hypergame theory, it can be activated and triggered at will by the attackers. And again, it's all achieved by placing the victim's brain to a state of severe functional disorientation through sleep deprivation torture and directed energy torture. The victim is tortured to near incoherency. These attacks are happening hundreds of times a day. Hundreds, not 800, hundreds. And people just don't understand the technology. By the time they do, it'll be too late. I'll be dead, and so will many other. They will induce many, many, many deaths. BRYAN 2, May 30th, 2017, 4:15 in the morning.